Today, we have Dr. Sean Foley, who wrote the book, The Arab States Beyond Oil and Islam. In his book, Dr. Foley presents a fresh picture of the Gulf oil states as cosmopolitan and tolerant states, societies that face all of the same socio-economic problems that most other states do, including a lack of oil. Dr. Foley is assistant professor of history at the Middle Tennessee State University, where he specializes in the Middle East, religion, and political trends in the broader Islamic world, and he earned his PhD at Georgetown. Thank you very much, Dr. Foley.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that warm introduction. Let me go back here a moment or two. For that, that's the opening slide. And first I want to say I'm very honored to be presenting at the Middle East Institute, which has served as a critical bridge between the people of the United States and those of the Middle East since 1946. That's quite a record to be proud of. For 30 years, Ibrahim al-Araid lived in this house here in Bahrain's capital, Manama. The son of an Iraqi mother and a Bahraini pearl merchant, al-Araid was born in Bombay in 1908. There he received an elite Indian education and English education, but did not learn his father's native tongue, Arabic, until he was 18. In 1927, al-Araid settled permanently in Bahrain, found work as a civil servant and as a translator, and began to write poetry in Arabic, English, and Urdu. Over the next 8 decades, he became a leading intellectual figure in Bahrain, helped draft its constitution, and would emerge as his state's most celebrated poet in the Arab world. Significantly, throughout his work, al-Araid cited leading Arab poets, along with a host of non-Arab poets and literary traditions. Among the most important were the 19th century English Romantic poets and Rabindranath Tagore, an Indian poet and philosopher who coined the term Mahatma to refer to Gandhi as a description of him, and was the first non-European to win the Nobel Prize in literature. One can find such multicultural influences in the books housed here in al-Araid's library in Bahrain, as well in poems like A Skylark, which draws on Percy Shelley, and in A Debate with Existentialism, a poem modeled in part on Tagore's famous song cycle, Gitanjali. While al-Araid's eclectic literary style, reflects his experiences, it also reveals the openness of Gulf society to foreign ideas and its ability to serve as a critical bridge between the ideas of the East and the ideas of West. Here it is worth noting that al-Araid spent his formative years far removed from Bahrain and immersed in Indian and Western literary and educational traditions. Nonetheless, he, like countless others, went on to make critical contributions to Gulf society at both home and abroad. And this should come as no surprise. Although many mistakenly assume and associate the Gulf societies with fanaticism and with intolerance, few areas of the world are more sociologically diverse than the Gulf or can match its success at integrating millions of Muslims and non-Muslims from around the world. Unfortunately, the diversity and cultural openness embedded in al-Araid's work and the societies of the Gulf states do not play a role in the chief tool scholars use to understand this theory, the rentier model. The rentier model emerged to explain the oil-funded socio-economic transformation not only of Iran, but of the other states of the Arabian Peninsula, the 6 Gulf Cooperation Council states: Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, or UAE. Scholars see these societies as so exceptional that they deserve their own scholarly model. This model focuses on the states' monopolies over their fees, or rents, which foreigners pay them for the right to extract oil from these societies. Scholars have argued that these rents permit monarchs in the Gulf to govern without taxing their populations or negotiating with the rest of society, as their counterparts must do in countries without oil. Within this framework, the autonomy of a government vis-a-vis its society relates directly to its rents from oil. The greater the revenues from external rents, the greater the autonomy, and vice versa. If oil revenues decline, rentier governments must make significant concessions to their populations in order to remain in power. Yet, the events in the Gulf in recent years have challenged the basic assumptions of this model in significant ways. Although the price of oil and revenues from oil sales increase with breakneck speed between the end of the 1990s and the onset of the global financial crisis in 2008, the opposite of what the rentier model predicts has occurred. Governments have held elections throughout the region, permitted many groups outside of traditional Sunni Arab male elites, groups including women, Shia, foreigners, and religious and secular opposition groups to take a far more visible public role than ever before. In 2008, Bahrain appointed the woman that you see here, Huda Nunu, to serve as ambassador, and importantly, she's Jewish. Together, these insights form 4 themes that are at the heart of my new book, The Arab Gulf States Beyond Oil and Islam. First, the Arab Gulf states face many of the same political and socio-economic challenges as states without oil. Second, many of the challenges that Gulf states face in the 21st century predate the rise of the region's oil industry in the 1930s. Third, we cannot understand either the past or the contemporary realities in Gulf states unless we come to terms with their diversities and the contributions of men like Al-Rayed, along with non-Arabs, non-Muslims, and women. Fourth, technological change has had and continues to have an important effect on the life and politics of the people of the Gulf. Above all, I ask, is it possible to think of these societies without beginning and ending our discussions with Islam and oil? Indeed, neither Islam nor oil provides us for an explanation for how it is possible that a mass circulation newspaper in Saudi Arabia regularly published schedules for satellite television programs and employed an openly gay writer, even though satellite television and homosexuality are officially illegal in the kingdom. Broadening our analysis beyond petroleum reveals the breadth of socioeconomic and political factors that have shaped these societies. It also allows us to see important continuities, historical and institutional continuities, that predate the rise of oil and continue over the past century. In particular, Gulf ruling families are unique in the Middle East. With the exception of Morocco, they are the only regimes in the region that can claim a continuous tradition of governing their states that predates World War I. Gulf rulers have governed for decades by utilizing established traditions of rule, by cultivating social networks, promoting Islamic and tribal values. Even at times, rulers have utilized non-Islamic calendars and beliefs, even when they contradicted traditions they claimed to uphold. Despite the fact that Ibn al-Wahhab characterized astrology as sorcery and thus forbidden under Islamic law, the decree establishing the state here, Saudi Arabia, in 1932, announced that the date of the kingdom's founding was specifically timed to correspond to the first day of the ascendancy of the constellation Libra. Both before and after the rise of the oil industry, ruling families have utilized these traditions and networks to maintain their position and to fend off various foreign and domestic challenges to their power in mosques and things like sword dances, like the one that you see here from Saudi Arabia in 2003, Hajj pilgrimage speeches, royal visits to provincial cities, welfare institutions. Monarchs interact with ordinary people and are therefore confirmed as leaders. Many rulers have further reinforced their power through a system that might be called a welfare state, in which individual subjects or tribes receive generous cash, subsidies, food, and clothing.